I avoided Rufus for 3 days after the sale. He made it easy for me. He avoided me, too. Then on the 4th day he came looking for me. He found me in his mother's room, yes-mamming her and changing her bed while she sat looking thin and frail beside the window. She barely ate. I had actually caught myself coaxing her to eat, and then I realized that she enjoyed being coaxed. She could forget to be superior sometimes and just be someone's old mother. Rufus's mother, unfortunately. He came in and said, "Let Carrie finish that, Dana. I have something else for you to do." "Oh, do you have to take her now?" said Margaret. "She was just—" "I'll send her back later, Mama, and Carrie'll be up to finish your bed in a minute." I left the room silently, not looking forward to whatever he had in mind. "Down to the library," he said right behind me. I glanced back at him, trying to gauge his mood, but he only looked tired. He ate well and got twice the rest he should have needed, but he always looked tired. "Wait a minute," he said. I stopped. "Did you bring another of those pens with the ink inside?" "Yes." "Get it." I went up to the attic where I kept most of my things. I'd brought a packet of 3 pens this time, but I only took one back down with me, in case he still took as much pleasure as he had the last trip in wasting ink. "You ever hear of dengue fever?" he said as he went down the stairs. "No." "Well, according to the doc in town, that's what I had." I told him about it. He had been going back and forth to town often since his father's death. Doc said he didn't see how I'd make it without bleeding and a good emetic. Says I'm still weak because I didn't get all the poisons out of my body. "Put yourself in his hands," I said quietly, "and with a little luck that will solve both of our problems." He frowned uncertainly. "What do you mean by that?" "Not a thing." He turned and caught me by the shoulders in a grip that he probably meant to be painful. It wasn't. "Are you trying to say that you want me to die?" I sighed. "If I did, you would, wouldn't you?" Silence. He let go of me and we went into the library. He sat down in his father's old armchair and motioned me into a hard Windsor chair nearby, which was one step up from his father, who always made me stand before him like a school kid sent to the principal's office. "If you think that little sale was bad, and Daddy really had already arranged it, you better make sure nothing happens to me." Rufus leaned back and looked at me wearily. "Do you know what would happen to the people here if I died?" I nodded. "What bothers me," I said, "is what's going to happen to them if you live." "You don't think I'm going to do anything to them, do you?" "Of course you are, and I'll have to watch and remember and decide when you've gone too far. Believe me, I'm not looking forward to the job." "You take a lot on yourself." "None of it was my idea." He muttered something inaudible and probably obscene. "You ought to be in the fields," he added. "God knows why I let you leave out there. You would have learned a few things." "I would have been killed, and you would have had to start taking very good care of yourself." I shrugged. "I don't think you have the knack." "Damn it, Dana, what's the good of sitting here trading threats? I don't believe you want to hurt me any more than I want to hurt you." I said nothing. "I brought you down here to write a few letters for me, not fight with me." "Letters?" He nodded. "I'll tell you. I hate to write. Don't mind reading so much, but I hate to write." "You didn't hate it 6 years ago." "I didn't have to do it then. I didn't have 8 or 9 people all wanting answers and wanting them now." I twisted the pen in my hand. "You'll never know how hard I worked in my own time to avoid doing jobs like this." He grinned suddenly. "Yes, I do. Kevin told me. He told me about the books you wrote, too. Your own books." "That's how he and I earn our living." "Yeah, well, I thought you might miss it, writing your own things, I mean. So I got enough paper for you to write for both of us." I looked at him, not quite sure I'd heard right. I had read that paper in that time was expensive, and I had seen that Wayland had never had very much of it. But here was Rufus offering. Offering what? A bribe? Another apology? "What's the matter?" he said. "Seems to me this is better than any offer I've made you so far." "No doubt." He got paper and made room for me at the desk. "Ruf, are you going to sell anyone else?" He hesitated. "I hope not. I don't like it." "What's to hope? Why can't you just not do it?" Another hesitation. "Daddy left debts, Dana. He was the most careful man I know with money, but he still left debts." "But won't your crops pay for them?" "Some of them." "Oh, what are you going to do?" "Get somebody who makes her living by writing to write some very persuasive letters." I wrote his letters. I had to read several of the letters he'd received first to pick up the stilted formal style of the day. I didn't want Rufus having to face some creditor that I had angered with my 20th century brevity, which could come across as 19th century abruptness, even discourtesy. Rufus gave me a general idea of what he wanted me to say and then approved or disapproved of the way I said it. Usually he approved. Then we started to go over his father's books together. I never did get back to Margaret Whalen, and I wasn't ever to get back to her full time. Rufus brought a young girl named Beth in from the fields to help with the housework. That eventually freed Carrie to spend more time with Margaret. I continued to sleep in Margaret's room because I agreed with Rufus that Carrie belonged with her family, at least at night. That meant I had to put up with Margaret waking me up when she couldn't sleep and complaining bitterly that Rufus had taken me away just when she and I were beginning to get on so well. "What does he have you doing?" she asked me several times, suspiciously. I told her. "Seems as though he could do that himself. Tom always did it himself." Rufus could have done it himself, too, I thought, though I never said it aloud. He just didn't like working alone. Actually, he didn't like working at all. But if he had to do it, he wanted company. I didn't realize how much he preferred my company in particular until he came in one night a little drunk and found Alice and I eating together in her cabin. He had been away eating with family in town. Some people with daughters they want to get rid of, Alice told me. She said it with no concern at all, even though she knew her life could become much harder if Rufus married. Rufus had property and slaves and was apparently quite eligible. He came home and, not finding either of us in the house, came out to Alice's cabin. He opened the door and saw us both looking up at him from the table, and he smiled happily. "Behold the woman," he said, and he looked from one to the other of us. "You really are only one woman. Did you know that?" He tottered away. Alice and I looked at each other. I thought she would laugh because she took any opportunity she could find to laugh at him, though not to his face because he would beat her when he decided she needed it. She didn't laugh. She shuddered and then got up, not too gracefully. Her pregnancy was showing now, and looked out the door after him. After a while, she asked, "Does he ever take you to bed, Dana?" I jumped. Her bluntness could startle me. "No, he doesn't want me, and I don't want him." She glanced back at me over one shoulder. "What you think your want's got to do with it?" I said nothing because I liked her, and no answer I could give could help sounding like criticism of her. "You know," she said, "you gentle him for me. He hardly hits me at all when you're here, and he never hits you. He arranges for other people to hit me. But still, I know what he means. He likes me in bed and you out of bed, and you and I look alike if you can believe what people say. We look alike if we can believe our own eyes." I guess so. Anyway, all that means is we're two halves of the same woman, at least in his crazy head. The time passed slowly, uneventfully, as I waited for the birth of the child I hoped would be Hagar. I went on helping Rufus and his mother. I kept a journal in shorthand. "What the devil are these chicken marks?" Rufus asked me when he looked over my shoulder one day. It was such a relief to be able to say what I felt, even in writing, without worrying that I might get myself or someone else into trouble. One of my secretarial classes had finally come in handy. I tried husking corn and blistered my slow, clumsy hands while experienced field hands sped through the work effortlessly, enjoying themselves. There was no reason for me to go join them, but they seemed to be making a party of the husking. Rufus gave them a little whiskey to help them along, and I needed a party, needed anything that would relieve my boredom and take my mind off myself. And it was a party, all right. A wild, rough kind of party that nobody modified because the master's women, Alice and I, were there. People working near me around the small mountain of corn laughed at my blisters and told me I was being initiated. A jug went around and I tasted it, choked, and drew more laughter. Surprisingly companionable laughter. A man with huge muscles told me it was too bad I was already spoken for, and that earned me hostile looks from 3 women. After the work, there was a great quantity of food: chicken, pork, vegetables, cornbread, fruit. Better food than the herring and cornmeal field hands usually saw so much of. Rufus came out to play hero for providing such a good meal, and the people gave him the praise that he wanted. Then they made gross jokes about him behind his back. Strangely, they seemed to like him, hold him in contempt, and fear him all at the same time. This confused me because I just felt about the same mixture of emotions for him myself. I had thought my feelings were complicated because he and I had a strange relationship, but then slavery of any kind fostered strange relationships. Only the overseer drew simple, unconflicting emotions of hatred and fear when he appeared briefly. But then it was part of the overseer's job to be hated and feared while the master kept his hands clean. Young people began disappearing in pairs after a while, and some of the older ones stopped their eating and drinking or singing or talking long enough to give them looks of disapproval, or more understanding, wistful looks. I thought about Kevin and missed him and knew I wasn't going to sleep well that night. At Christmas, there was another party, dancing, singing, 3 marriages. Daddy used to make him wait until corn shucking or Christmas to marry, Rufus told me. They like parties when they marry, and he made a few parties do. Anything to pinch a few pennies, I said tactlessly. He glanced at me. You better be glad he didn't waste money. You're the one who gets upset when some quick money has to be raised. My mind had caught up with my mouth by then, and I kept quiet. He hadn't sold anyone else. The harvest had been good, and the creditors patient. Found anybody you want to jump the broom with? He asked me. I looked at him startled and saw that he wasn't serious. He was smiling and watching the slaves do a bowing partner-changing dance to the music of a banjo. What would you do if I had found someone? I asked. Sell him, he said. His smile was still in place, but there was no longer any humor in it. I noticed now that he was watching the big muscular man who had tried to get me to dance, the same man who had spoken to me at the corn husking. I would have to ask Sarah to tell him not to speak to me again. He didn't mean anything, but that wouldn't save him if Rufus got angry. One husband is enough for me, I said. Kevin? Of course, Kevin. He's a long way off. There was something in his tone that shouldn't have been there, and I turned to face him. Don't talk stupid. He jumped and looked around quickly to see whether anyone had heard. You watch your mouth, he said. Watch yours. He stalked away angrily. We'd been working together too much lately, especially now that Alice was so advanced in her pregnancy. I was grateful when Alice herself created another job for me, a job that got me away from him regularly. Sometime during the week-long Christmas holiday, Alice persuaded him to let me teach their son Joe to read and write. It was my Christmas present, she told me. He asked me what I wanted, and I told him I wanted my son not to be ignorant. You know I had to fight with him all week to get him to say yes. But he had said it. Finally, and the boy came to me every day to learn to draw big clumsy letters on the slate Rufus brought him and read simple words and rhymes from the books Rufus himself had used. But unlike Rufus, Joe wasn't bored with what he was learning. He fastened onto the lessons as though they were puzzles arranged for his entertainment, puzzles he loved solving. He could get so intense, throw screaming, kicking tantrums when something seemed to be eluding him, but not all that much eluded him. You've got a damn bright little kid there, I told Rufus. You ought to be proud. Rufus looked surprised, as though it had never occurred to him that there might be anything special about the undersized, runny-nosed child. He had spent his life watching his father ignore, even sell, the children he had had with black women. Apparently, it never occurred to Rufus to break tradition, until now. Now he began to take an interest in his son. Perhaps he was only curious at first, but the boy captured him. I caught them together once in the library, the boy sitting on one of Rufus's knees and studying a map that Rufus had just brought home. The map was spread on Rufus's desk. Is this our river? The boy was asking. No, that's the Miles River, northeast of here. This map doesn't show our river. Why not? It's too small. What is? The boy peered up at him. Our river or this map? Both, I suspect. Let's draw it in, then. Where does it go? Rufus hesitated. Just about here, but we don't have to draw it in. Why? Don't you want the map to be right? I made a noise, and Rufus looked up at me. I thought he looked almost ashamed for a minute. He put the boy down quickly and shooed him away. Nothing but questions, Rufus complained to me. Enjoy it, Ruf. At least he's not out setting fire to the stable or trying to drown himself. He couldn't quite keep from laughing. Alice said something like that. He frowned a little. She wants me to free him. I nodded. Alice had already told me she meant to ask for the boy's freedom. You put her up to it, I guess. I stared at him. Ruf, if there's a woman on this place who makes up her own mind, it's Alice. I didn't put her up to a thing. Well, now she's got something else to make her up her mind about. What? Nothing to you. I just mean to make her earn what she wants for a change, he said. I couldn't get any more out of him than that. Eventually, though, Alice told me what he wanted. He wants me to like him, she said with heavy contempt, or maybe even love him. I think he wants me to be more like you. I guarantee you he doesn't. She closed her eyes. I don't care what he wants. If I thought it would make him free my children, I'd try to do it. But he lies, and he won't put it down on no paper. He likes Joe, I said. He ought to. Joe looks like a slightly darker version of him at that age. Anyway, he might decide on his own to free the boy. And this one, she patted her stomach, and the others, he'll make sure there are others. I don't know. I'll push him wherever I can. I should have took Joe and tried to run before I got pregnant again. You're still thinking about running. Wouldn't you be if you didn't have another way to get free? I nodded. I don't mean to spend my life here watching my children grow up as slaves and maybe get sold. He wouldn't. You don't know what he would do. He don't treat you the way he treats me. When I'm strong again after I have this baby, I'm going. With the baby? You don't think I'm going to leave it here, do you? But I don't see how you can make it. I know more now than I did when Isaac and me left. I can make it. I drew a deep breath. When the time comes, if I can help you, I will. Get me a bottle of laudanum, she said. Laudanum? I'll have to keep the baby quiet. Old Mama won't let me near her, but she likes you. Get it? All right. I didn't like it. Didn't like the idea of her trying to run with a baby and a small child. Didn't like the idea of her trying to run at all, but she was right. In her place, I would have tried. I would have tried sooner and gotten killed sooner, but I would have done it alone. You think about this a while longer, I said. You'll get the laudanum and anything else I can supply, but you think. I've already thought. Not enough. I shouldn't say this, but think what's going to happen if the dogs catch Joe, or if they pull you down and get that baby. The baby was a girl, born in the 2nd month of the new year. She was her mother's daughter, born darker skinned than Joe would probably ever be. About time I had a baby look like me, said Alice when she saw her. You could have at least tried for red hair, said Rufus. He was there too, peering at the baby's wrinkled little face, peering with even more concern at Alice's face, sweat-streaked and weary. For the first and only time, I saw her smile at him, a real smile, no sarcasm, no ridicule. It silenced him for several seconds. Carrie and I had helped with the birth. Now we left quietly, both of us probably thinking the same thing, that if Alice and Rufus were going to make peace, finally, neither of us wanted to break their mood. They called the baby Hagar. Rufus said it was the ugliest name he had ever heard, but it was Alice's choice, and he let it stand. I thought it was the most beautiful name I had ever heard. I felt almost free, half free if such a thing was possible, halfway home. I was gleeful at first, secretly elated. I even kidded Alice about the names she chose for her children, Joseph and Hagar, and the 2 others whose names I thought silently, Miriam and Aaron. I said someday Rufus is going to get religion and read enough of the Bible to wonder about those children's names. Alice shrugged. If Hagar had been a boy, I would have called her Ishmael. In the Bible, people might be slaves for a while, but they didn't have to stay slaves. My mood was so good I almost laughed, but she wouldn't have understood that, and I couldn't have explained. I kept it all in somehow and congratulated myself that the Bible wasn't the only place where slaves broke free. Her names were only symbolic, but I had more than symbols to remind me that freedom was possible, probable, and for me, very near. Or was it? Slowly I began to calm down. The danger to my family was past. Yes, Hagar had been born, but the danger to me personally still walked and talked and sometimes sat with Alice in her cabin in the evening as she nursed Hagar. I was there with them a couple of times, and I felt like an intruder. I was not free, not any more than Alice was or her children with their names. In fact, it looked as though Alice might get free before I did. She caught me alone one evening and pulled me into her cabin. It was empty except for the sleeping Hagar. Joe was out collecting cuts and bruises from sturdier children. "Did you get the laudanum?" she demanded. I peered at her through the semi-darkness. Rufus kept her well supplied with candles, but at the moment the only light in the room came from the window and from a low fire over which 2 pots simmered. "Alice, are you sure you still want it?" I saw her frown. "Sure I want it. Course I want it. What's the matter with you?" I hedged a little. "It's so soon. The baby's only a few weeks old." "You get me that stuff so I can leave when I want to." "I've got it." "Give it to me." "God damn it, Alice, will you slow down? Look, you keep working on him the way you have been, and you can get whatever you want and live to enjoy it." To my surprise, her stony expression crumbled and she began to cry. "He'll never let any of us go," she said. "The more you give him, the more he wants." She paused, wiped her eyes, and then added softly, "I gotta go while I still can, before I turn into just what people call me." She looked at me and did the thing that made her so much like Rufus, though neither of them recognized it. "I gotta go before I turn into what you are," she said bitterly. Sarah had cornered me once and said, "What you let her talk to you like that for? She can't get away with it with anybody else." I didn't know. Guilt, maybe? In spite of everything, my life was easier than hers. Maybe I tried to make up for that by taking her abuse. Everything had its limits, though. "You want my help, Alice? You watch your mouth." "Watch yours," she mocked. I stared at her in astonishment, knowing exactly what she had overheard. "If I talked to him the way you do, he'd have me hanging in the barn," she said. "If you go on talking to me the way you do, I won't care what he does to you." She looked at me for a long time without saying anything, and finally she smiled. "You'll care, and you'll help me. Else you'd have to see yourself for the white you are, and you couldn't stand that." Rufus never called my bluff. Alice did it automatically, and because I was bluffing, she got away with it. I got up and walked away from her. Behind me, I thought I heard her laugh. Some days later, I gave her the laudanum. Later that same day, Rufus began talking about sending Joe to school up north when he was a little older. "Do you mean to free the boy, Ruf?" He nodded. "Good. Tell Alice. When I get around to it." I didn't argue with him. I told her myself. "It doesn't matter what she says," she told me. Did he show you any free papers?" "No." "When he does, and you read them to me, maybe I'll believe him. I'm telling you, he uses those children just the way you use a bit on a horse. I'm tired of having a bit in my mouth." I didn't blame her, but still, I didn't want her to go. Didn't want her to risk Joe and Hagar. Hell, I didn't even want her to risk herself. Elsewhere, under other circumstances, I would probably have disliked her. But here, we had a common enemy to unite us. I'd planned to stay on the Whalen plantation long enough to see Alice leave, to find out whether she would be able to keep her freedom this time. I managed to talk her into waiting until early summer to go, and I was prepared to wait that long myself before I tried some dangerous trick that might get me home. I was homesick, and Kevin's sick, and damn sick of Margaret Whalen's floor and Alice's mouth, but I could wait a few more months, I thought. I talked Rufus into letting me teach Nigel's 2 older sons and the 2 children who served at the table along with Joe. Surprisingly, the children liked it. I couldn't recall having liked school much when I was their ages. Rufus liked it because Joe was as bright as I had said, bright and competitive. He had a head start in the others, and he didn't intend to lose it. "Why weren't you like that about learning?" I asked Rufus. "Don't bother me," he muttered. Some of his neighbors found out what I was doing and offered him fatherly advice. It was dangerous to educate slaves, they warned. Education made blacks dissatisfied with slavery. It spoiled them for field work. The Methodist minister said it made them disobedient, made them want more than the Lord intended them to have. Another man said educating slaves was illegal. When Rufus replied that he had checked and that it wasn't illegal in Maryland, the man said that it should have been. Talk. Rufus shrugged it off without ever saying how much of it he believed. It was enough that he sided with me, and my school continued. I got the feeling that Alice was keeping him happy and maybe finally enjoying herself a little in the process. I guessed from what she had told me that this was what was frightening her so, driving her away from the plantation, causing her to lash out at me. She was trying to deal with guilt of her own. But she was waiting and using some discretion. I relaxed and spent spare moments trying to think of a way to get home. I didn't want to depend on someone else's chance violence again, violence that, if it came, could be more effective than I wanted. Then Sam James stopped me by the cookhouse, and my complacency was brought to an end. I saw him waiting for me beside the cookhouse door, a big young man. I mistook him for Nigel at first, and then I recognized him. Sarah had told me his name. He had spoken to me at the corn husking and again at Christmas. Then Sarah had spoken to him for me, and he had said nothing else until now. "I'm Sam," he said. "Remember at Christmas?" "Yes, but I thought Sarah told you." "She did. Look, it ain't that. I just wanted to see if maybe you'd teach my brother and sister to read." "Oh, how old are they?" "Sister was born the year you came here last, brother the year before that." "I'll have to get permission. Ask Sarah about it in a few days, but don't come to me again." I thought of the expression I had seen on Rufus's face as he looked at this man. "Maybe I'm too cautious, but I don't want you getting into trouble because of me." He gave me a searching look. "You want to be with that white man, girl?" "If I were anywhere else, no black child on this place would be learning anything." "That ain't what I mean." "Yes, it is. It's all part of the same thing. Some folks say—" "Hold on." I was suddenly angry. "I don't want to hear what some folks say. Some folks let Fowler drive them into the fields every day and work them like mules." "Let him?" "Let him. They do it to keep the skin on their backs and the breath in their bodies. Well, they're not the only ones who have to do things they don't like to stay alive and whole. Now you tell me why that should be so hard for some folks to understand." He sighed. "That's what I told him. Bet you better off than they are, so they get jealous." He gave me another of his long, searching looks. "I still say it's too bad you already spoke for." I grinned. "Get out of here, Sam. Field hands aren't the only ones who can be jealous." He went, and that was all. Innocent, completely innocent. But 3 days later, a traitor led Sam away in chains. Rufus never said a word to me. He didn't accuse me of anything. I wouldn't have known Sam had been sold if I hadn't glanced out the window of Margaret Whalen's room and seen the coffle. I told Margaret some hasty lie and then ran out of her room, down the stairs and out the door. I ran headlong into Rufus and felt him steady me, hold me. The weakness that his dang fever had left was finally gone. His grip was formidable. "Get back in the house," he hissed. I saw Sam beyond him, chained into line. There were people a few feet away from him crying loudly. 2 women, a boy and a girl, his family. "Ruf," I pleaded desperately, "don't do this. There's no need." He pushed me back toward the door, and I struggled against him. "Ruf, please. Listen, he came to ask me to teach his brother and sister to read. That's all." It was like talking to the wall of the house. I managed to break away from him for just a moment, just as the younger of the 2 weeping women spotted me. "You whore," she screamed. She had not been permitted to approach the coffle, but she approached me. "You no-count whore. Why couldn't you leave my brother alone?" She would have attacked me, and a field hand that she was, strengthened by hard work, she would probably have given me the beating she thought I deserved, but Rufus stepped between us. "Get back to work, Sally." She didn't move, stood glaring at him until the older woman, probably her mother, reached her and pulled her away. I caught Rufus by the hand and spoke low to him. "Please, Ruf, if you do this, you'll destroy what you mean to preserve. Please don't." He hit me. It was a first, and so unexpected that I stumbled backward and fell, and it was a mistake. It was the breaking of an unspoken agreement between us, a very basic agreement, and he knew it. I got up slowly, watching him with anger and betrayal. "Get in the house and stay there," he said. I turned my back and went to the cookhouse, deliberately disobeying. I could hear one of the traders say, "You ought to sell that one, too. Troublemaker." At the cookhouse, I heated water, got it warm, not hot, and then I took a basin up to the attic. It was hot there and empty except for the pallets and my bag in its corner. I went over to it, washed my knife in antiseptic, and hooked the drawstring of my bag over my shoulder. And in the warm water, I cut my wrists.